Hello there, and welcome to this audio commentary playthrough of the Breach project. So this will just be commentary of me going through various aspects and giving some insight into how things were made and what the overall goal was, and various levels of iterations, and how certain effects and uh, aspects of this environment were achieved. So we start off here in the basic starting area, I guess you could call this. This is obviously right away you can tell this is a space station or some sort of industrial place, and obviously if you look out the windows you can see stars, so immediately you know where you are. This is space, you are likely on a space station or a ship of some kind. And yeah, not much to say here. This is basically just so that you can get used to the controls, get your bearings about you, and absorb what will be most of the design of this space station. And as you can see, with true sort of facility fashion, there is breakups along the top of colour to indicate sort of which way you're going. So yeah, we have this door here when we're moving on. This is a simple trigger box. Once I enter it, get close to this door, I've entered the trigger volume. It then prompts an animation to be played. The animation was done inside Maya with just basic keyframes. So right now, as long as I stay here and don't exit, this door will remain like that until I walk through. I've now entered the trigger volumes area, and it has played a closing animation with the sound as well. That is all a simple blueprint. Uh, very at the start of this, it was very easy to do. You know, suits the purpose, gets you through, makes the environment more believable rather than just having empty causeways with no doors. So yeah, now we move on to this other section of this narrow element of this section. Obviously, we can see there's some more things presented to us, like these emissive holograms of sounds. These are simple target files that have a basic emissive texture, or sorry, material running through them, with the emissive turned up and a simple orange color picker attached to it. And the sound is a sound cue inside the environment that has a radius effect to it, or area of influence effect. So that's why you can hear it here, and I'll leave it's not immediately playing. Obviously the music and the ambience is always playing. It's on synced up loops so that it's sort of mostly seamless, so the user can't. It's not a harsh loop. So yeah, just moving on, we can see more of the design. This obviously has a trim sheet. As you can see, it's quite repetitive, but you can generate a good effect and a good quality of texture very quickly. And obviously these are just different materials that have slightly different textures. As you can see, this texture has the blue area up the top, and then this one has the yellow. Along with the floors as well, this is a sort of blue metallic floor, then that's white. So yeah, we also have these little props here. These were imported from another project I did previously at my time at university. But I just thought to cut down on time, and rather than try to design a new box to fit this, these pretty much still fit the aesthetic of what I'm going for. And you know what, I just thought, okay, change the lights on them and prop them in there. Adds to the environment, adds to the believability. These are maybe supply crates of some sort. So yeah, that's us moving on. And these blinking lights were achieved with simple point lights that have a flicker attached to them inside the material. And obviously you can sort of get the sense that, oh well, why are these ones flickering and these ones aren't? Well, that's because this is the first interaction with the entity, the character, the main character of this environment. Obviously, Breach is trying to just simulate the effect of the environment being the character and the environment being the one of expression emotion rather than the player. So the player is just a vessel for the interaction and interaction. There's no character to this. This is just an NPC and a hollow husk that we're incorporating that will get the point across. So yeah, these ones, again, just another material that's red and another prompt with an evacuation. All personnel evacuate, I believe it says. Yeah, please exit immediately. So that also builds out the fact that this entity is given a verbal and a visual warning to you not to come here. Again, just technically going back to technicals, these lights are simply changed. These are all the same textures. So how this is achieved is we've entered a trigger volume that played that, and all it's done is seamlessly switched to the same texture, the same textures, but they have the red emissives in them rather than the blue ones you saw over there. And obviously these emissives are sort of generating their own lighting, but it's very low. I didn't want there, because if you turn it up too high, the whole area looks very red and it just doesn't gel well with the rest of the, area. It's bright lights and dim lights to indicate neutral, angry, and so forth. So yeah, and then these point lights have also just been changed. So I actually exited the trigger volume there, which is obviously the door. Oh, the door doesn't really like that. But yeah, what's happened there is basically once I've entered that trigger volume, I've set it to go back to normal, just so you know that there's a return to normality. So yeah, if the door doesn't freak out, it's supposed to open just like the last one. Exit that, trigger threshold, plays that. And now we've obviously entered a new threshold, which is going from the linear, very narrow claustrophobic tubes to this open area. We're now exploring the heart of this facility, this installation. So we can see more of those, holographics, and they have the same prompt, and it's very red, very smoky, a lot of effects going on. And we notice this electrical fault here, and when we've entered it, it says press E to breach. Obviously, given the player once they're playing this the first interaction or breach as it's obviously called. So press E and immediately we have a bigger lighting change with the first sort of pleasant slash non-hostile audio cue of this entity, and obviously us fixing that error there caused the lighting to change, which obviously you would sort of take that as that was a good thing you did rather than a bad thing because the lights didn't go red or there wasn't perpetual shouting or like screaming at you. So yeah, just to talk about this, obviously this environment is using the one trim sheet to simulate to do a lot of the heavy lifting for the design. Uh, but I thought that this area could still use some of unique objects, so that's why we have these yellow tubes here. These are quite industrial, quite sci-fi looking. I thought they help break up the composition, sort of add more to the scene. And of course, just again, some dirt textures on them that were textured in Substance Painter, just to show that this facility's seen better days, and it reflects, obviously, the sort of grimeness and, uncleanliness that you can see in the reflected in the actual trim sheet itself. So yeah, moving on, we have some basic blue sort of like tubes now with a caution sign. So another good thing to see in sort of industrial sci-fi is just tubes that say caution on them. Don't exactly know what they do, but if they have a caution sign on them, probably best not to go near them or touch them. So yeah, and obviously, we have some more little very bright emissives here that are just reflecting. Again, just to break up, what we've already saw. Couple of steps leading up to this main section where we have two paths that break off, and you can sort of see this is where people have just dumped these boxes and supplies, and universe. Again, these boxes, as previously mentioned, are from another project. These boxes were actually part of the very first installation, or sorry, not installation, the very first prototype for this project. I just gave them some new textures and even experimented a little bit with physics, particle physics in Maya. So like sort of simulating cloth physics. Sorry, not particles. I said particles. It's cloth physics. So yeah, that was basically what we did, and it was just to see if I could generate something that looked realistic. So there's this sort of tarp draped over this box, and funnily enough, there wasn't a lot to do in terms of retopology. In fact, there was no retopology. And once I hastily got this into Substance Painter and gave it this texture, it seemed to actually, for the most part, present itself quite realistically. And I thought, hey, that kind of suits this environment, so I'll just add that in, and obviously, we have these simple boxes that I believe yes, you can move them if you wish to. Just again another little interaction, just if you want to move the boxes around. Yeah, and obviously, the reason obviously the box is responding so well to the environment is because all of these object pieces have been manually resculpted with proper collision by me inside Maya. So I talked about that in the portfolio with UCX application. So basically you make the model you want to texture, and then you remold that in a sense with simple geometry. You go over it to the very fine edges, and then you label that a UCX file, and you import it to Unreal, and it registers that you have this, what we're actually walking on, and then hidden is the collision, which is just simple geometry and the shape of this object. So yeah, now we come to a very visually stimulating area. So we have a we have a skybox here and a sort of like sky dome that we can see out of, and we can obviously see some dirt and what have you there. We can see this very intimidating tower which reflects this little hologram display here, and we can sort of get a sense of still the stars. Quite a dark region of space, not a lot of exciting, light parameters or stars, but it also reinforces that you are in space. So yeah, just talking about this, obviously we can see welcome to Stanston Observatory. This is actually 3D text that was made with Maya's and built-in 3D text to 3D tool, and then I've just imported that with made a simple material inside Unreal with blue emissive. It's the exact same blue emissive you see here with this model of the space station. So now we're presented with what we actually know is the full readout of the station. You can see this reflects the areas we've been to. We can see the long tube at the start there where we were just back there. And yeah, this is a simple model which is scaled down, simplified and imported. It's got a pivot point in the center which it's rotating around, which gives it this nice rotation and just basically adds to the composition of this little area. At the bottom here we have one of the Niagara particle effects in play. It's a very simple particle effect. It's just simply going around on a ring and flickering up some of these little individual pixel particles, just to give more visual stimulus to this area rather than just having the station floating by itself. It has this little ring thing over it. It just maybe clusters of data or something like that, or scans that the space station's picked up, because it is an observatory, so we now know the purpose of this place. And obviously, observatory obviously goes well with the fact that we can actually observe the blackness of space. So yeah, over here we're prompted with warning no entry, and as you can see, it does have collision. No matter where I go, I can't actually get in. Even if I jump, there's no way for me to enter. Again, something we just see a lot in science fiction is like these hard light warnings are able to emerge and sort of block off areas with a force field. So yeah, interestingly enough, these are both target files, the warning no entry sign and obviously this little path indicator sign are both target files with just simple uh, properties inside the material that's applied to them to generate the redness and the flicker effect inside them. So yeah, that's that area, and then obviously we come over to one of the more complicated parts of this environment, which is this interactive panel. So as you can see, there's a highlight there when I click about, and when I click it, obviously it denies me for some reason. No matter how many times I click it, it will just play that. But if I click for facility status, you can see we get a more pleasing note, and it actually gives us some information. So the facilities inspection is overdue. Please contact maintenance. Yeah, 940 days overdue. Please contact management. So again, a little lore building, a little bit of world building. This was all made with a UI widget, and the screen, and including this little thing here, is all part of an actor, which is just properly positioned over this area to exact measurements. So yeah, moving on, we can't go that way, so obviously we need to go that way, and there is something down there that looks pretty out of place. Before we get to that, however, just talk a little bit about these unique assets as well, which are these fan blades. Again, going with the industrial look, even though the trim sheet is obviously doing most of the heavy lifting visually, I thought it would be a good opportunity to put some fan blades in. They are part of an they are always seen in industrial settings and sci-fi settings. So I definitely wanted to have some vents, but I didn't want to spend too much time making very complex. So these simple enough, objects, models were basically imported. The animations were done in Maya, so that is just playing on a constant loop to a certain time signature, which causes these fan blades to properly spin. So yeah, again, nice composition if you go far out enough. Shows that the space station does have ventilation. And here we come to the second breach protocol, which is obviously this entity. We can interact with it. So when we press E, we've done something that clearly has upset the entity. Back there we did something to help it. Now it seems we've actually just undone any good favour we have with it. And as you've noticed, these little holograms were yellow, they're now red, again giving the player plenty of visual stimulus to understand that this was not a good thing that they just did there. So yeah, some more boxes scattered out just to populate the landscape a little bit. And we get here, yep, again just definitely letting us know that it is not happy with us. But it does bring us to this back section of the space station, of the environment, with the anomaly map. And as you can see here, it does have a very complex particle system going for it. So this is basically another one of Niagara's many fancy features. So what's happening here is that this is actually working off some simple ring structures that I made in Maya. You can see that in the portfolio. You can see exactly what object I'm talking about. And what I've done is I've said, right, use that object's basic geometry to influence the direction of these particles in relation to gravity. So there's a gravity multiplier that is really centered on the middle there, which is causing all of these nice particles to bunch up and spin in the direction of the actual shape. Obviously the shape is invisible, so you're just left with the particle. As for the color, that is actually the skybox outside that we saw back at the main area there. I've just really ramped up the emissive to bring out all of the color details as best I could, and I think you end up with a really interesting looking sort of particle fit galaxy map. And we have these little planets here which are just spheres with emissives turned up. So again, we have the exact same screen we saw there, but we have some interesting things about it. So if I hit about, again we're met with a really territorial, animalistic growl from the entity. It does not want us knowing what about means. Obviously, I've just done that to leave some mystery for the player. So we click log update. It plays the exact same message again. This does have potential to go much further in future projects, but just given time, it was just something that was nice to add a little bit of lore building and show off some technical skills with the UI widget. So that's all we can really get out of this section of the environment. As you can see, we're now moving on. We've really entered this lighting change now. We're in this very red orange, almost hellish like area, and now we're actually on the other side of that warning no entry. We can see the fire, and funnily enough we can actually interact with this whole scenario. So we press E to breach, and the familiar sound of relief plays. So we've obviously helped the entity. There's no more fire, there's no more issue, no more danger, so everything's seemingly went back to normal. There's no more red lights at all, there's nothing indicating danger or an indication of being hurt or what have you. And then if we actually take time to just observe the whole environment, we can see everything is now back to a cool blue light, indicating obviously that all things have went back to normal. So yeah, that is basically Breach. That is obviously it's a small map with the very basic interaction prompts and UI widgets and blueprints and what have you. But it was very interesting to work on this. It was definitely a lot of hard work, a lot of learning for sure. But I think I was able to make something that is interesting. I think it does leave you with more questions and answers, but that was kind of intentional. So Yeah, that's basically it. And then when you press K on the keyboard, you have this nice little official logo for the project Breach, and then a simple exit game because it is, after all, it is an environment inside a level. So yeah, that was the commentary for Breach. I hope you enjoyed. I hope hopefully you learned some insight to how the project was done. If not, you can always check out the portfolio. That will obviously have more detailed descriptions and writing with construction screenshots of the process. So yeah, that's all for me. Thanks for watching.